All right. We are going to watch some videos today. This one was posted a day ago from Odd Job. A lot of you guys called me to watch it yesterday, but obviously that is against the rules. We wait at least 24 hours until let the video sit there and do its thing on YouTube. And Odd Job posted a video titled Star Citizen Needs Some Help Plus Important Update. I'm not sure what the update is, but this is continuing his conversation around progression in the game. I think we watched a video on it fairly recently, last week. And this is him continuing that conversation. I thought he had really good takes in the last one, so assuming he's going to have good ones in this one. Let me link the video to you guys now in Twitch chat. If you guys don't know Odd Job Entertainment, he's kind of just starting out, and his videos deserve a lot more views than they have right now. So get there, get subscribed, check him out if you guys haven't yet. He's a really cool dude and hangs out in chat sometimes, DMs. He's a good dude. So show him
Star
some love.
Citizen has a lot of content. The problem is none of it connects to each other. It's missing what I like to think of as connective tissue. In the human body, you have muscle, smooth muscle, bones, blood, and
brain. Smooth brains.
Various other types of cells, and connecting them all is the tendons, ligaments, and cartilage. This is the connective tissue. Without this connective tissue, all the great functionality that your body has falls apart. Literally. And Star Citizen is doing kind of the same thing. For instance, we have mining, which is a pretty well thought out game loop, but how does it connect to mercenary work? The answer is, at the moment,
It doesn't.
it doesn't. But with a few simple tweaks and an...
It can, but you gotta, like, suspend reality and pretend. So there's a lot of playing pretend that can happen here, and you can make the game fun if you play pretend, right? And a lot of people do that, and then they call out playing pretend as the well, I'm having fun. And that's great. So don't get upset when people who don't want to play pretend, well, all video games are playing pretend, let's be real here, but when people don't want to play pretend and they want to just have these gameplay systems kind of lead them into a certain, a bit of enjoyment or, make money more valuable in the game and progress and things like that, give some meaning to the worlds that we're playing in. From everyone is experiencing the same thing, everyone is playing the same pretend, I guess, is sort of where I want it to go. But I often see comments of, I'm having fun because I get together with my org and go mining. Well, I have a mining org too, and we have played pretend, and it is fun. It is fun, but it in a game that is intended to be an MMO, it's not fun every day. It's not fun day in and day out. Yet, I could do that in another game that's an MMO, that's a space game, that has asteroid mining, every single day. And it's meaningful because the things that I'm mining turn into other things that I can make money with, that I can use to buy things that I need in the game. It's just a better... You just get a better game. You just get a better game if you do that. And this idea of people being upset when other people want the game to be better is a classic Star Citizen thing that I'll never understand.
Expansion of the reputation system, I think this could change. Today's video is brought to you courtesy of my sister. More on that in a bit. This is a continuation of a series of videos on progression in Star Citizen.
What?
If you haven't seen the first one, we talked about cosmetics as easy, low-hanging fruit, and some other base-level progression mechanics. I want to expand a little more and go a bit deeper this time. Because I do mostly combat, let's start there. Right now it's up in the air as to how we're going to get the new night vision scopes. But like with most of my videos, we're going to pretend like we know something. Let's say that Wallace Klim has gotten his hands on a shipment of military tech and is willing to trade for them. What is he asking? He'll give you a scope for 5 high-grade ship capacitors. How do you get these capacitors then? Well, you can buy them, in rare cases from vendors in Stanton, Pyro certainly doesn't have any due to their lack of connections, and waiting to buy them in Stanton could take several days as you wait to buy them one at a time. So what other options do you have? As it turns out, Twitch is selling a blueprint.
See, we can't do that, though. Right? It's been 12 years, and we can't give an NPC something and get something other than UEC in return. And I'm not shitting on this idea whatsoever. I'm making a joke of the fact that this is such a basic concept in every other game you've ever played, as at least MMOs, that doesn't exist in this game, that was never prioritized. At least never prioritized properly over other things. It's an easy call out of, why, guys? Why? Give me a valid reason why. You know?
These capacitors. If you do a mission for her, she'll give you this blueprint. Now you have a framework to create the capacitors yourself. All you have to do is mine some aluminum, copper, and a little bit of quantanium. The aluminum is stretched into a foil, doped with the quantanium, and then rolled into a tube. Presto, you have a high-grade capacitor. Bring
Easy.
5 of these to Wallace, and now you have your night vision scope. If we look at what we just did here, we've taken a combat player and had them go mining, do missions, and finally craft items in exchange for a reward that wasn't AUEC. This framework of gameplay is exactly the kind of connective tissue Star Citizen is severely lacking.
Yep.
Now in this example, a major component is crafting.
And nobody's saying that it's easy or hard to do. Nobody knows. Only the devs who work on it know, right? It's just simple.
Indeed,
It's a simple mechanic that other games do, and it's the part of it existing in the game of like from the game development side is of no player's concern. You just look at what they've done on the mission side and go, okay, cool. Why haven't you done this yet? Now, what's very exciting is it kind of sounds like in some fake, not fake, fake's really hard, bad word. Most MMOs, you interact with a UI. So you will take something from your inventory UI and place it into another UI to deliver it to the NPC, right? And then another imaginary UI will pop up, and you will take that item from that UI and put it into your inventory, and then all of a sudden you have this thing, but it was never physicalized. Star Citizen has to be physicalized. It sounds like the contested zones, they're using like doors and loot containers to physicalize items. That might end up being rewards or something for us, right? Like, oh, this is hidden behind this door. We spawned in this item or something like that, right? And you had fought off 5 dogs that stood still to get it.
Is a huge influence in how these various types of gameplays can interact. If we think just about grenades for a moment, right now we have one type, and they are readily available in stores for credits.
Yep.
But when was the last time you bought a grenade at your local Walmart? What if instead of buying them, you crafted them? Then, what if...
When was the last time you crafted your own grenade?
Instead of one kind of grenade, there were several. What if they all had different material requirements? A typical fragmentation grenade might require sulfur, carbon, and potassium nitrate to make gunpowder. Then you load this into a metal or ceramic casing and add either a timed fuse, gyro, or an impact sensor. A flashbang might require you to mix magnesium.
Odd job. This video is flagging, like, yeah, the FBI is like knocking on his door right now. They're like, is this guy making grenades? What's going on here?
Mix and use a softer casing. Imagine for a moment that you could tailor your grenade recipe to get different performance characteristics out of it. But maybe the stores in Star Citizen still sell grenades. But maybe because those ones are so basic, players use them less. Wouldn't you enjoy making explosives more than just buying them? Actually, Don't answer that. I'm pretty sure I put myself on a few lists making this video. Crafting and blueprints do have an unfathomable potential to shift how players interact with the game. I would love to see stores stripped of most of their options if it meant that I had alternative ways of getting the items I want. It's a unique kind of gameplay in that it builds onto existing game loops and gives them depth in ways that few other gameplay loops can. But that's not to say that it's the only way to get the interaction goals we laid out at the start. In fact, the new cargo missions have potential here to supplant the need for crafting as a stopgap for the short term. If we can't yet have our 3D printer or forge or whatever machine we'll be using for crafting, cargo trading could serve as a way to skirt this in the meantime. Let's say you've mined the required ores to make a gallant rifle. You've got some copper, iron, carbon, silica, and various others. You pick up a quest that rewards you with a gallant rifle upon completion. The first step of this quest has you take your materials to Microtech to sell them. From there, you buy components that have become available because they were crafted using the materials you provided. You buy these components and bring them to ArcCorp, where you can sell them and then be able to submit the quest. Those materials are crafted into the rifle behind the scenes, and your quest gives you a voucher for it that you take to the store vendor in exchange for the rifle.
Hate this idea, but don't hate this idea. I think this is okay for unique items that are maybe high rep and specialized of some kind. Often in MMOs, these are like named items, things like that, right? Maybe something like that. But in terms of crafting, I think I would rather keep crafting very sandboxy and allowing players to kind of be very, very free in what they craft and how they craft it. But maybe crafted items you can make really good ones, but there might be this special Hurston item that, like Hurston makes ship weapons, right? So there might be this very special tuned Hurston weapon that you can only get through doing like a high level mission, right? Something like that. Maybe it has low durability, high chance to fail, whatever, but it's good. It's really good. Something like that. I would also, but I want crafting. You want the basic items to be in the shops from NPCs. You want the rest of the game to be kind of done by the players, but you can have drops from NPCs, which is what he's essentially describing here. So,
in theory, this is the logic or intent already existing with Cargo Mission. In the Star Citizen Live on the subject, they talked at length about how cargo missions tell a story. Location X buys certain cargo because they sell items made from it. The only problem is we have Elliot in charge of missions, and he doesn't exactly inspire confidence. At the moment, they don't really fulfill that goal. But if we replaced him with someone that actually wants to make missions, it seems like what I've described should be possible with a little creativity.
How have the memes of this channel gone, and they've gotten legs? Elliot, I'm sorry.
Right now, cargo missions are being made with the idea that Quanta will eventually be in charge of all these interactions. That's fine. In the meantime, I don't think we really need it. It's more of a nice to have. Because if CIG simply took items off the shelves in the verse and turned them into quests as described, players will make the items at the rate they feel they need them. This might be a way to actually build up a dataset to inform Quanta so that whenever it does come online, it won't have to crawl and can skip to running. There's other gameplay loops that are yet to be fully implemented. Salvage is certainly among them. And what is salvage if not the reverse of crafting? Instead of making things, you're taking them apart, right?
Yeah.
The new freight elevators give us some more flexibility because we now have locations where we can more easily store the weird stuff. CIG could make it so that when you salvage a ship based on what components and materials it had, you could get semi-random drops of subcomponents with various durability levels. Maybe you even get an undamaged high-grade capacitor this way. If the Vulture stored these elements in a separate buffer from the other materials it collects, then at the end of your shift, You could eject it into an SCU container and store it in your hangar. This could see the number of commodities.
And what if the vulture only has a couple buffers, small buffers? What does that have, 13 SCU? What if it has 3-4 SCU buffers, and you can only split the material? You can only, collect 3 materials. Everything else has to get burned off. I don't know if I like that idea. I don't know. We need salvage refining. You might be right. You might need to take RMC and use different chemical processes to separate the materials that you want out of it. And you choose the materials that you want. Like your RMC could be RMC, but it says what material properties are inside of it. So it's X percentage this, X percentage that, Y percentage this. And then you use a refinery process to determine which ones you want. We already have that process in the game right now. I think that can work. I think that can actually be quite fun. Yeah, they can even use the refinery decks we have, or whatever ship refinery gameplay we end up with. We need RMC types. You would have to tell me what you mean by types, but if I'm going to read into what you say, it could be 5 different words in front of RMC, and then those types would have different materials inside of them, right? So salvaging a reclaimer would have these materials, and it would have a name, and game knowledge would determine I know what that name means, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I think that could work.
Explode and connect salvage to other gameplay loops.
The other thing that I would love to see salvage do is I've enjoyed Eve salvaging more than any other salvaging in the game. More than Star Citizen salvaging, and I love Star Citizen salvaging. What Eve salvaging does is they simplify it a little bit. Is you need to be close to the wreck, and then it's just based off of your skill if you fail or succeed, and it's a random roll what that wreck will give you. It might be some broken capacitor, or it might be some really valuable item, and it's random within a category. So there'll be a tier 1, a tier 2, and a tier 3 kind of thing. It is kind of lame. So hear me out. I would like to apply a little bit of that. So when you're structurally salvaging, instead of just getting construction materials, I do think things like circuit boards and these little tiny components that can go into the larger crafting loop of spaceships and components and things like that would be interesting. So if you were to structurally salvage, you're not just getting construction materials, you're getting kind of a smorgasbord of items. And sometimes those items are really good, and then sometimes they're not so good. And the likelihood that you get some good stuff would be based off of the level of kind of ship that you're going for. So if it's pretty high tech, then maybe you're getting some good shit, right? Now, components like quantum drives and those things, that's a different story. Obviously, you go inside the ship and take those. I'm talking about these crafting elements. You know what I mean? So I hope you understood that correctly. I didn't mean you just press a button and then you get the quantum drive. That's not what I'm saying. That would be like
cargo
looting.
Trading in numerous complex ways, beyond just strictly regimented commodities like RMC. But let's think about ways we can tie progression and reputation into our web of gameplay connections. Very easy one. At each level of reputation within a particular faction, getting a component as a reward sounds very interesting, especially if it were only acquired that way. Let's pretend that Microtech will give you a drift quantum drive if you reach the first rep level. Getting fast drives is valuable to everyone, so a miner that typically doesn't care for mission gameplay might be incentivized to try it out so they can get that drive. Likewise, if the eventual mining guild offers a particularly tanky industrial shield, a bounty hunter might find themselves in a cargo crew so they can fit their fighter with better shielding. Now, if you get
I don't know if he's going to get into this, so I'll jump in just in case, because it doesn't seem like he's going to. Even more importantly, the mining guild. Elliot says, if I could only share your designs. I'm sure we believe, like, the thing about Star Citizen and like guys like you, Elliot, is we believe you have good ideas. So we put out our ideas only because your good ideas don't come to fruition. Because once they get into practice, it becomes way more difficult to make a good idea happen in this game, right? So for us, at least I believe, I don't want to speak for anyone else. Sorry. I saw somebody say, do we? I think a lot of you guys get the problems, but we're definitely struggling with delivering, right? So we'll have to see. Like it's been the whole year. It's been one of these things where it's like, it looks like these guys are on the right track, but the execution just has fallen on its face for the first half of the year into August, which is far from half at this point. So anyway, the even more important thing around the only way to get a certain item is X is that a lot of people like to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and not X. So what that creates is a marketplace for that item. Because the mining guild may have an item that is really useful to them, but is only earned by doing high-level bounty missions, right? So then all of a sudden, players who are doing high-level bounty missions are providing a service for people who are not them and are making, are gathering and collecting items that are important for other people and that they can be sold to those players. Obviously, we need a marketplace of some kind, so on and so forth. There's layers upon layers upon layers of this that need to exist to make this work, which is why it feels like it's many, many, many years away if it ever happens at all. But I think the most important thing about creating exclusive rewards in a given path that you would have to kind of like dedicate to, learn, get better at, is that there's needs from people who don't want to do that because they like their gameplay loop and they want to stick to it. And then it makes people need each other. And that's when that's when MMOs happen. Is when you have a person over here that needs something and you got a person over there that has it, and they both play the game in different ways, and they don't want to do each other's loop. They do not want to do each other's loop. PvPers don't want to mine. Miners typically don't want to PvP. But they could need each other, and that's when you get an MMO. That's the most important thing.
Players to mix it up like this, you can introduce even more opportunities. Let's say the local charter of the Cargo Guild is being tormented by the Ninetales who are running a protection racket. Because of the heavy threats, they're not willing to talk to anybody unless they have a high level of trust. It just so happens that a particular bounty hunter has been doing work for them and climbing within their ranks. Who better to tell than this about the problems they're facing?
Yeah, currently they just kill each other.
The bounty hunter that wanted better shields now has earned exclusive access to a mission they wouldn't have found if they never did cargo. This is basically the plot of that episode of The Mandalorian with the shrimp farmers and the pit bull people, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
One potential problem here that I've seen in response to my previous video was that getting players to do all kinds of gameplay like this makes Star Citizen into more of a theme park MMO. I think there's validity to the concern, but I also feel it is overblown. I think what these players are really saying is that they want the gameplay within a career to feel rewarding. If they've dedicated themselves to one activity, they want the ability to stand out as an expert. I agree with this aspect, and I'm not trying to take that away. As a combat player, I don't know all the intricacies of mining in Star Citizen. Each time there's a major change, I depend on other players to show me the ropes and give
Red
recommendations
monster.
on a loadout that can crack rocks in the first place. I wouldn't expect to ever be as good as someone who has spent hundreds of hours doing mostly mining. But I do want to get a taste. I firmly believe that players should have the freedom to try every aspect of the game through their playtime. At the same
Yeah, and I think, I'll let him talk.
I also firmly believe that each aspect should have enough depth to make time investments feel well rewarded. Since we're talking about
Even if I only dip my toes in, I should feel rewarded by that. The only reward should not be at the top. The rewards at the early stages should feel rewarding as well, especially if you're just dipping your toes in.
mining at the moment, let's keep going with that.
That's
You can
a really
have
good, really
guild-protected
good point.
mining sites that are inaccessible to the public. In my home state of Utah, there's the massive Kennecott copper mines. You can take a tour there, and it's really cool seeing the massive machinery. At the same time, when I went there as a wee lad, it's not like I was ever close to the actual work sites. Same can easily be done in Star Citizen. You can and should restrict access to areas based on reputation, personal connections, and skill. CIG has been quite conservative with station defense systems. On the far end, I think a one-hit kill railgun is perfectly fine as a hard stop to players who should not be in an area. For instance, if you're a pirate coming up on Seraphim Station,
But give them a little time. Don't do it right away. There's got to be a threshold to the just boom, you're dead kind of thing.
you better dance. Give them a chance to leave, and then punish their resistance with prejudice.
Yeah.
And if you're me, trying to sneak into a quantanium-rich mining area, my heart rate should stay above 120 as I'm constantly looking over my shoulder for guild goons on patrol.
That is such a... Oh, that resonates with me so hard. I don't know if you guys like this or not, but the moment my heart starts pounding in an MMO or a game period, but it only really happens in MMOs. It's happened in Tarkov before. That's the game. That's it. That's my drug. That's my drug in video games. That is what keeps me coming back. And Star Citizen has only done that, I would say, a handful of times for me over the years. And 2 of those times were tournaments. So they don't really count because it's not the MMO, it's not the PU. Right? DayZ's great with that. Yeah. So there's a lot of games that do that really well. Star Citizen absolutely can do really well with that. That is still so possible and so capable of being done. But ship insurance gets in the way of that quite a bit. So I don't really know I don't have a solution for them, honestly. That is a challenge that I do not envy whoever has to figure that one out, because somebody who spent a lot of money on a ship, do they get that heart-pounding moment? I don't know. But I think back to so many other games where I felt that. And I think I've only felt it maybe once or I would say twice for sure. Vandal Mask, getting towards the end of it, and specifically killing a player that killed me like 3 times. Like actually winning that fight, learning PvP, and then getting my nemesis. There's a YouTube video up on my main channel for that, actually. And then there was another moment where I think I was just like playing with a random, and we ended up getting a crime stat, and a bunch of people were attacking us. That was fun. But you need all the things that Odd Jobs talked about up to this point to really get that heart-pounding moment to happen, right?
Assuming there even is a way to get there at all. My existence in areas that I haven't earned should feel extremely fragile. It's not just stations and protected lands either. There's a lot of ways to grant access and reward players with more abilities. Right now, a strict armistice is enforced at every major landing zone. This has made it easy to have safe places for players, but it also severely limits the utility of these zones. If I'm chasing a bounty target, all they have to do is reach a zone, and I can't touch them. But if I have a high enough rep, I don't think security would mind if I brought non-lethal weapons into the landing zone. Heck,
I wasn't sure where he's going, but yeah, I can vibe with this. I still am a little iffy. I think if you don't get I think maybe the game needs to give you more tools to allow you to kind of like get to this person before they get to that zone. But I have always been totally fine with the fact that armistice zones exist, and if you don't get them before they get to the zone, you lose. If you're able to continuously go to a zone, especially in a situation where that pirate cannot use weapons against you, but you can use them against them, the fairness level goes into a little bit of a weird place. So I don't know how I feel about where he's going.
if I keep Konstantin Hurston happy, he'll probably even let me gun down civilians for kicks. That tends to be a recurring theme with totalitarian regimes.
Remember, no Russian.
Gaining access to regional armories, outfitters, arms dealers, informants, data drops, locations, rights, and so much more can and should be the reward for someone who has put in the work. All of these serve then to differentiate experts in one field from someone who has only dabbled in it. Here in the land of the free, we have the right to bear arms, so you can buy guns, and we have a lot of them. But you might be surprised to learn that even Americans have limitations to what they can have. Technically, if I go through a lengthy process, acquire an FFL license, offer a blood sacrifice to the soul of Franklin D. Roosevelt, and several other steps, I can own a fully automatic weapon. Even then, it has all kinds of limitations into which ones you can actually have. There's recurring taxes on both the state and federal level, and many other headaches. So for most people, and for all practical purposes, it just doesn't happen. As a result, there are companies who wouldn't even entertain the thought of talking to a civilian like myself. So in Star Citizen, why is it so easy to get access to military ships? I know some people will rush to point out that there are civilian and military designations as well. You can't own true military craft. But my F-7A Mark II disagrees with you. This part gets a bit tricky, as we've already sold millions of dollars of military hardware to players. How do you not steal their money, but also make military ships make sense in the game? How do you balance the power dynamic between them? This is further complicated because a lot of the solutions I would present depend on the game being in a much more finished state.
Yep. That's basically every conversation that has happened on this channel and every other one that I've had forever. You're literally just stuck with any solution that would be here would be the servers work better, there's an economy, the devs are delivering stuff that's polished, and there's more players playing in the game.
The easiest solution in my mind would be to have it such that Aegis, Anvil, RSI, and all the others only sell fighters within the confines of heavy militarized systems and only to players who have ground out the rep in these systems. You then make these...
But then what do you do if when players ground out the rep in real life, went to work, or used a credit card and bought them? It's like we have such a weird dynamic right now with the real money versus in-game money. Is everybody wants the grind to exist in-game, but everyone's ignoring the fact that the grind doesn't have to exist if you pay money at all. Like, at all. So it's this weird situation. And then people bring up the idea of licenses. So I bought a ship for real money, but I can't fly it until I earn a license for it. Would that even be allowed? I have no idea. So it's like another situation where you don't envy the situation they put themselves in. And the game will only be worse because of it. I don't want CIG to not make money. I love the idea of a lot of the things that they've done, but the way they decided to make money makes it incredibly challenging to make the game the best it possibly could be.
Systems a living hell that provides a constant fight for survival. Supposing the game gets millions of additional players at some future date when ships are no longer sold, if that ever happens,
yeah, it's fine,
then the power of one whale like myself gets severely diluted when there's no other way to get these ships. If you then die outside these systems with that ship, you need to go back to that system to get a new one. In a similar vein, and as a way to further balance whales like myself, It shouldn't be a given that I can just get my components back each time I issue an insurance claim.
Yeah.
CIG has flip-flopped on this a few times, and until the servers are in a better state, I think they've made the right call with easy claims.
Agreed.
Assuming server meshing
For
works and it becomes less believable to blame the servers for every death, I think they should turn that off. Make every death hurt. Make it take a literal year off my life as I rage at my keyboard and have to consider all the work now required to get all those military grade components back.
Yes.
Make it so that I have flashbacks to grinding the contested zones to get that exclusive part.
Yep.
I want the pain. On the other side of this coin, have you ever tried to buy a Ferrari? It's terrible. I looked into the process one time, imagining a future where I could afford one. Unfortunately, I don't think that will ever be a canon event for me, and after looking into the requirements, I'm actually kind of glad. If you want to get the latest Ferrari, good luck. You have to already be a repeat customer. There's widespread allegations of prejudice built into the review process, and the contractual obligations as an owner.
Welcome to the world of luxury goods. If you want the best thing, and this is like totally a salesman driven thing. Trust me, I have family who did this. If you wanted to, who worked in luxury, if you wanted to get the best thing, you needed to spend a certain amount of money with that employee. And then the employee would allow you to have access to that thing. And it's strictly to keep those items exclusive, so these maintain their exclusivity. That's it.
Are absurd.
Yeah. Well, they're talking
Ferrari
about Ferrari.
gets a say in how and when you can sell
the
a
world
car you
through him.
own. They require appearances at Ferrari events annually, and the list goes on and on. I think aspects of this, though, could easily apply to ship brands in the game as well. Think Origin, for instance. Why would they entertain the financials of a pleb like myself? If I walked into an Origin dealership, I should consider myself lucky they sell me a t-shirt. Getting an Origin ship in-game should represent a lot more than it does currently. They should be expensive, costly to maintain, and only worth it for the performance they offer high rollers. This again falls into the same issues with military ships, however.
I don't understand that aspect in a video game. Like the luxury good. Usually the most expensive things that people are trying to buy these things for are because they're rare. I don't understand I guess that's the way luxury goods work, is they're artificially rare.
How do you enforce this kind of idea
I'm happy I'm a
when
Drake
it's
guy
already
too?
been sold to
Sure.
thousands of players? Components is one possible way to make this happen. They mentioned this briefly in the last Star Citizen Live. Expand the difference between any given component tier, size, and grade, and then remove all the nice ones from the store shelves and lock them behind some kind of progression.
It sounds like they're doing this. But once again, after this year, how confident from a scale of 1 to 10, feel free to type it in chat, are you that on the initial time they do this, it's going to be really good and fun, right? I'm pretty much at a 1 or a 2.
This makes it such that, yeah, you own an Origin 300i, but it sucks compared to what it could be with the right kit installed. What else do you think can be done to balance the pocketbook against earning things in-game as it pertains to ship access, supposed?
Job, if you see this, I want to read this comment out for you if you don't see it. This guy makes so much sense, it makes me angry.
Rarity and exclusivity? Let me know in the comments below. This is not
good
the last
comment
video
or a
about
hate
progression
comment?
that I plan to make. I plan to turn this into a series, and I would love to hear any ideas that you have for progression as well. It might make it into the next video. At the outset, I did talk about how this video is sponsored by my sister, and this part is kind of tough. My sister was recently diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Oh, shit.
And we have started a GoFundMe to raise funds to help pay for her living expenses. Now, to be clear, she's going to be okay financially. She's got a big supportive family, and it's not like we're just going to let her starve, right? She's on my parents' insurance, and they've got great coverage.
There you go.
So
oh my God.
medical expenses
might be the
are
link.
taken care of.
Let me know.
If you do have disposable income and you want to help out, Donating to the GoFundMe will help cover their living expenses. There are a number of changes that they've had to make quite suddenly that they weren't prepared for. One of them being that my sister had to quit her job and she had to defer her school grants, scholarships, the whole shebang, because you can't really do homework when you're throwing up all the time from chemo. There will also be a series of exclusive videos on the member side of the channel for people who are particularly interested in my sister's case. We've decided to do it that way because I don't want to give up my sister's privacy entirely, and limiting it to members will have a pretty big subduing effect to the number of people that see it. And so that's a way to protect my sister to some degree. But if you do want to know more, there will be more detail on her prognosis and her treatment as time goes on the member side of the channel. At the moment, I've got some interviews with members of my family who have been with her through the diagnostic process. And so those will be coming up in the near future. If you do have disposable income, every bit helps. If not, totally fine. Please do not feel pressured. I'm leery about making this kind of announcement in a YouTube video because I've seen a lot of people get wronged by YouTubers, and I don't ever want to have any association with those people. Initials being LP, you probably know at least a few more that I'm probably thinking of.
It's a little different.
So, gosh, I don't really know how to say this. My sister's going to be okay. If you do have disposable income and you're looking for a place to put it, GoFundMe is an option. Additionally, I want to extend a special thanks to the creator community. There has been a pretty big outpouring of support for me on the channel side. I've had creators like Havoc reach out to me and talk to me about how to optimize my content delivery. And I've actually applied a few of those here. So if Havoc is watching, I hope you see that I'm taking your tips to heart.
It's really good.
And, SaltEMike has featured my videos. That's been great. I've also been featured on Virgil Shadow Moses' channel. And nice. I'll be doing a podcast appearance at the time of recording in the next week. Assuming I get this out in time for that, then it should be in a couple days from when you see this. But who knows how quickly I get this done. But I just want to say thanks. I've gotten a lot of great feedback in the comments on how to improve my delivery. One of them being to incorporate a teleprompter, which I used this time. I don't know if you guys can tell.
It was really good.
But it should be that my speaking segments are longer is the biggest thing that I've noticed. I also incorporated a pop filter. I designed both of these and printed them out and made them. There is a video on how I made the teleprompter uploaded to the channel. Pop filter, I'm probably not going to do a video on that one. It's pretty simple. But yeah, I just want you guys to know that I am...
Yeah, he posts all sorts of shit. So it's not just the Star Citizen channel. He does like 3D printing and all sorts of crazy shit on his channel too. So it's like a bit of a mixed bag, which is never the best thing to do for a YouTube channel. But it's also, I kind of like those channels because I like to follow people. I don't like to follow, I don't know, like factory farmed shit kind of stuff.
I'm grateful for your constructive criticism. It helps me be a better content creator, and ultimately, I make these videos for you. So, with all that said, this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off.
That was awesome. Odd Job, great video. I always have a hard time finding disagreements with things he says. Like, this time, I think I had definitely things that I could point out that, like, yeah, he went at Elliot pretty hard, though. Harder than I normally do. But I don't know. I think there was a couple things that I maybe didn't agree entirely on or definitely had something to add to. But for the most part, it's like, yeah, man, we need a game. It's really hard to... It's hard. It's hard right now. It's like there's so many obvious changes that could be made, and it's hard to understand why they haven't been, and why they weren't prioritized. And yeah, it's a bummer. So, like, as much as I love videos like this, sometimes they bum me out because it's like yeah, they're all really good ideas, but are these ideas going to happen? And if they are going to happen, how long is it going to take them to happen? And if they don't take that long to come in the game, how unpolished are they going to, you know? And it's just the PTSD of what we've experienced for so long is pretty brutal. But all great ideas. I'm becoming more open to the let me share some cool ideas from other games that I've played, or let me share some cool ideas of what I think would make Star Citizen fun. I used to hate the idea of creators designing stuff, but the less they design and the more ship sales come out, the more fun it is to just make the game in your own head, I guess, right? So I enjoyed the video very much.